Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your patience. We're going to go ahead and get the workshop started. So we'll call the meeting to order and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Here it is. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll take a roll call vote. Chair Reyna.
Here.
Chair Ortega. Here. Commissioner Coulson. Commissioner Riley. Here. Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Coulson. And Commissioner Thedford.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Now's the time for the public participation for any person wishing to speak to the Advisory Redistricting Commission on matters listed or not listed on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the commission. If you are attending the meeting by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. If attending in by personal computer, please click the raise your hand button. Please press *6 to unmute yourself, state your name, and begin speaking. There will be a 3-minute limit imposed on each speaker. At this time now, we'll bring up Chair Reyna.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. This is really important for our community, and I'm really glad that all of you are able to participate. At this time, I would like to bring up Kristen Parks and writer Todd Smith, who are actually going to be presenting all the goodies that you're going to be a part of. I want everybody to remember that this is your city. You are the ones that are drawing the maps. So pay close attention so that you have all the information that you need. And if there's a question, please be sure to put it into the chat so that it can be answered. Thank you so much for your time today. Do we have any public comments at this time?
We do have a public comment on the Zoom. Dave Bowman, we will be allowing you to talk right now, and I'm muting your microphone.
Good afternoon, Dave. How are you today? You need to unmute yourself, Dave.
Okay, I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Oh, you muted again. You're still muted. There, no. You're still muted, Dave.
What about now?
Okay, no.
Okay, well, apparently I have to
go.
go ahead and stay
Perfect.
keyed up the whole time. Okay, so I apologize.
He's muting himself.
What happened?
He's muting himself. Muting and unmuting himself.
You are once again muted.
Okay, now?
Now you're perfect. Don't touch anything. We're good to go.
Okay, don't touch nothing. That's what my mom used to tell me. But I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. I wanted to go ahead and ask if anybody has, from both the firm that's conducting the mapping as well as the advisory committee, has ever gone ahead and conferred with the mayor in private on these matters rather than in public. The second question I would like to go ahead and ask has to do more with, no, you know what? I'm going to leave it for that. I just want to go ahead and hear that answer first, and then we'll go ahead and we'll make more comments later in the program. Thank you.
Mr. Bowman, this is Assistant City Attorney Shot Taslakian. Thank you for your comment. The public comment portion is the only comment portion where the commissioners are not allowed to have a conversation regarding these issues. But I would suggest that you bring up that issue later on in the discussion portion this evening when we're talking about the broader scope of redistricting. Thank you for your comment.
We do have another hand raised on the call.
Okay, who is this?
Participant with the last name Scofield will be unmuting your microphone now.
Okay. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm blessed. How are you?
We're well, thank you.
Yes, I would like to say that I have participated in a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of Zooms, and this Zoom is so dark. I mean, you can hardly see anybody or anything. Wow. So, I mean, what's going on with the lighting?
Unfortunately, we don't have control in the auditorium that we're in.
Wow. It's as if you're hiding. I'm serious, literally. But of course I ran for the mayor of Palmdale. And my question is, what what length have you gone to actually in this planning process? Have you actually got populations from all of the groups or ethnic groups in Palmdale to actually make the decision or to redraw the district? Like who's actually participating in this? Because you suggested that this is your district, this is your city, and you're here to actually create the new districts, but who's actually planning? Who's involved? And are we going to take the posture of nobody cares or no people that are not concerned, or maybe they weren't privy of this, or that are really not connected politically? Because this has been the long prolonged ongoing situation with city politics in Palmdale. Is like people don't know. And so because they don't know and they're not in the know, they do not have a part of the decision making process. And it's people that look like me that I'm particularly speaking of, blacks and browns.
3 minutes is
So
up, Ms.
I'm
Schofield.
trying.
You can please
Okay.
finish your
All
comment.
right. Thank you.
Okay. And just for the public to be aware, during public comment portion, we are not able to answer questions. So I would reserve any questions you have at this time in regards to redistricting process to the last portion of this public meeting, where you'll be able to have a more in-depth discussion regarding some of your concerns. So I just want to reiterate, the public comment portion is an opportunity to make comments. You have 3 minutes to make those comments regarding anything on the agenda today, or any issues that you'd like to discuss with the commissioners in general in their purview. So with that in mind, if there are any other public comments, please raise your hand.
There are no other public comments on the Zoom call.
We have a microphone.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you to the city of Palmdale to allow us to get together and have our meeting of the minds with future changes and with respect to equal representation for all. It's a statement, and this is my first time looking at this. I did run for Palmdale School District, and the reason I ran because of the lack of equal representation when it comes to implicit bias and other matters that matter to people of color. Having said that, you're showing me here on page 10, on the bottom left, it says each of the 4 districts must contain about 42,598 people per district. And as you look at the colored map that I see for the first time, and as you can see, District 1 blue is dominating all districts. So I asked myself, how long and who do they really represent, right? Because as we know, historically, the east side is always ill represented. So that's why I'm here. And I'm hoping to shift and lower the average per district, because right now, as it stands, we're looking at over 3,000 plus on District 1. So I hope you guys can educate me and help me to come up with a map that represents inclusivity for all people that live in Palmdale. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Is there anyone else on IT?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, at this time, I would like to Perfect. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. So I have Kristen Parks, and I have writer Todd Smith to my right, your left, and this is my left, your right. They are going to show you a wonderful presentation. Please enjoy.
Is this mic? Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, so I want to make sure a couple logistical points. We are broadcasting the screen successfully, right? Excellent, okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming together and being here today in the beautiful city of Palmdale. Whenever I get a microphone and audience these days, I feel compelled as a result of COVID to try to be thankful for something. And this morning, I want to be thankful for grace and patience. I want to thank everybody in the audience for your patience and our friends on Zoom and understanding that technical difficulties happen every now and then, but through patience we are human together, and I appreciate you all maintaining patience after a long time. So as said, let's see, I got control here. Great. So already mentioned that Spanish language translation is available for the audience's understanding. We not only have Spanish language translation in the room, but we also have Spanish language translation available on Zoom as well. So we can be as inclusive as possible for our Spanish-speaking community. Number two, as noted on the PowerPoint slide, and for the purposes of those in the audience, we are recording this meeting as well. We do that for transparency purposes, to make sure that everybody has full access to the conversations that take place in these environments, and because what you have to say today is important to the process, and we want to make sure we accurately get that recorded. So just keep in mind that the comments that are made during the public comment section and the discussion, that will all be part of the public record. So as mentioned, my name is Ryder, this is Kristen. We each work for respective firms that are involved in the redistricting process. Kristen is an expert in demography and the redistricting process itself. We are expert in the outreach and communications component, meeting facilitation, and also have experience working in the redistricting space on the outreach side. As we could potentially get into later, this new process that is in place as a result of the passage of the Fair Maps Act placed a big emphasis on community outreach and engagement, and having forums just like this to provide the public ample opportunity to participate in the process. And so we've been all up and down the state of California getting to do this work together, partnering oftentimes with the folks at National Demographics Corporation to get this work done, and it's been a heck of a lot of fun. So I want to just talk a little bit about today's goals. Number one, this is a very esoteric process. It only comes along, generally speaking, every 10 years. So, and it involves a lot of math, a lot of legal nuances. And so it's not like something you'd expect everybody to just understand. It's not like you understand a pothole in the road, right? Potholes in the road, pretty simple concept. This is far more complex. So the city has made significant investments in contracting with the state's premier expert in demography firm in DC to make sure that you as the public are empowered with knowledge and understanding of what's going on in this process. So I'm thankful that they made that investment, because the goal is to ultimately help you learn from the experts. And that's our goal today, is to take advantage of that expertise. Then the experts get to listen to you, because while we might be experts in the outreach process and the redistricting process in the state of California broadly, you all are experts in your community of Palmdale. So we need to make sure we listen to you to understand how that works. We're also going to go over some mapping tools that are available, and which is really an amazing thing. You know, we deal with a lot of complex problems in local government. There are very few times where the solutions are actually put in the hands of the public to help participate in the process. And I'm sure Kristen would agree with me that the ideal scenario is that somebody listening to us today from the public is the one who draws the map that ultimately becomes a part that's the map that is adopted. That would be the dream scenario, right? So we are really interested in making sure we empower the public in that process, that they draw that nugget of an original map. And then, sorry, my bar is over the, make that bad boy go. And then finally, of course, the end goal here is that you leave empowered with, to give effective feedback throughout this process, and that you basically go back and talk to your friends and neighbors and get them involved in this process too. So we fill a theater like this full of people who are excited about demography, representative government, and the future of democracy in the city of Palmdale. I also have a quick administrative note. So for those that are at home, you have the benefit of having a screencast going on right now. Anybody in the room, please note that the PowerPoint deck, because of a technical issue with our screen, We have paper printouts available. You should have grabbed one on the way in. They are available in English and Spanish, so please make sure you have one of those to help follow along with us today. All right. The other comment I want to make is that you should care about this process, right? So fundamentally, there's 4 good reasons. Number one, democracy is better when people are engaged. And by showing up on a Saturday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you definitely have demonstrated more than the average amount of engagement for the public at large, and we appreciate your commitment to being here, and we respect that. Number 2, you are ultimately the experts in the community. We can bring in all sorts of expertise from outside Palmdale, but we benefit from the expertise you all offer about the community and your neighborhoods, and ultimately you're experts in those neighborhoods and can tell us about them to make sure we respect those neighborhoods in those communities as we go about drawing maps. And finally, this is a once-in-a-decade opportunity. We're going to do this process this year. We're going to get through this process, and then those maps are going to be around for 10 years. So let's make the best decisions possible, and so that we have a 10-year legacy of success to help the city of Palmdale move forward. So today's schedule is scheduled for an hour and a half. Notably, we start a little bit late, so we'll probably go right up until 3 o'clock would be my guess. We're going to go through process, rules, and goals of this entire exercise. Then we're going to discuss some mapping tools. Our mapping tool demo might be a little bit abbreviated just because we don't have the benefit of the screen sharing in here today. And then we're going to talk about neighborhoods and communities of interest. And this is really the interactive feature where we're going to be coming and talking with you and asking you to identify communities of interest. And that's a term you're going to hear a lot today. And we have a whole deck to help inspire some questions and thoughts in your head. And then we want to hear from you and have you go on the record. We'll be taking notes on that. And then finally, we're going to conclude by talking about next steps. So that's the big plan today. We're going to roll through that as quickly as possible. I'm not going to hand it over to my co-conspirator here, and she's going to take it away. Would you prefer a handheld mic, or are you ready for the podium mic?
Oh, I'm good with the
Okay,
podium
safety
mic.
at the podium.
Yeah, I like a podium. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kristen Parks. I'm a consultant with National Demographics, and I'm going to talk you through the redistricting process, which of course is a little bit different this year because we're dealing with all the delays in the release of census data, all of the setbacks that happened with COVID over the past year. So if you're just tuning into this process for the first time, it's perfect timing to get involved. In the coming months, this process will ramp up. So I am looking at the current district map for the city of Palmdale right now. And those of you on Zoom can see it. Those of you in the room, I know you have, it's sort of hard to see on paper. But the reason I'm showing you this is because the city of Palmdale recently made the transition from at-large city council elections to district-based city council elections. So you see the current district map shows the 4 districts across the city. And what's different about the redistricting process is that there's much more opportunity here for public involvement in making the decisions. So this previous map was created as the result of a lawsuit against the city. What we're going to finish with during redistricting will, as my colleague said, hopefully be a map created by a resident of Palmdale. So I'm going to show you some demographic information. We are going to go over the process and the legal requirements, and then we're going to have a discussion. So as I mentioned, our timeline is getting darker in the room. This is our official Halloween Advisory Redistricting Commission meeting. Okay, we're in a haunted redistricting meeting. Those of you on Zoom, ooh, okay. It's a haunted timeline, frankly. So I will say, here's how this process is going to go down for the city of Palmdale for redistricting. The city decided to convene an advisory commission. And what the advisory commission is tasked with doing is holding community workshops to educate the public, to receive public input about their goals for redistricting, and ultimately make a recommendation of a district map to the city council. And so here we are in the middle of October in District 4 today in a community workshop. And I will say that state law requires 4 public hearings during this process. But the city of Palmdale has opted to go above and beyond. The commission is hosting these workshops in every district. And ultimately, after the commission recommends a map to city council, the way this process works is that the city council has the final say on adopting the new district map that will go into place for the next 10 years. So you see highlighted April 17th. That's actually the last day, the legal deadline for the city council to approve the new district map. And I'm going to show you in a minute the website that the city has created dedicated to redistricting, and you can find the full schedule there for any of the upcoming meetings. And we do invite you to attend the community workshops and the public hearings and to invite your neighbors. So there are legal requirements that I want to cover. In many ways, this is to empower the public because we not only want to hear from you, we also want to give you the chance to draw your own district maps. And so in order to do that effectively, you need to understand the legal requirements for redistricting. So we have 2 sets of law that we have to contend with, right? First and always foremost is our federal law. So federal law says that each city council district should have relatively equal population. That ensures that each resident of Palmdale can be fairly represented, that each council member is representing roughly the same number of residents. We also have the Federal Voting Rights Act. And what that says is when we're drawing our district boundaries, we must take care not to diminish the voting power of any protected class of voters. So for that reason, we will be looking at citizen voting age population data by race and ethnicity. However, federal law also states that we cannot draw district boundaries with race or ethnicity being the predominant or sole factor. So while we will be looking at that data point, we will also be looking at many other demographic data points that you'll be seeing, that you can actually see on the website, and I'll show you where you can even see those on a map. So as my colleague Ryder mentioned, in California, we have a new law that is in place for the first time for redistricting. And that California law is giving every city going through this process a list of criteria that must be considered when drawing districts. So this list is rank ordered, meaning we have to consider what's number 1 on the list before we consider 2, 3, 4, etc. So I'm very quickly going to run down this list of criteria. And the first one is that districts should be contiguous. That is a fancy way of saying each city council district should be one complete piece with no disconnected parts. So that's pretty easy to understand. The second criterion is that districts should be drawn in a manner that minimizes the division of Palmdale's neighborhoods and communities of interest. I'm going to talk more about that in just a moment because that's really the focus of today's discussion portion of the workshop. Third, we want to create district boundaries that are easily identifiable. So you don't have to be a demographer or mapping expert to know where your district ends and the next one begins. One of the ways we do that is trying to draw the boundaries along things like major roads or other natural boundaries that folks are already familiar with. Finally, California law says our districts should be compact. While there are a lot of different ways to define compactness, state law defines a compact district as a district that is not bypassing a nearby group of people in order to go farther away and draw into that district a more distant group of people. So you might think about a district that isn't compact as having a really funny shape, right? That goes in places you wouldn't expect. That being said, compactness is last on that list. So sometimes there are districts that are drawn that are not compact because there were more important criteria that had to be considered before compactness. Finally, under other goals, we can talk about things that are Palmdale specific. We can talk about minimizing changes to for voters from shifting them from one place to another. There are lots of other issues that often come up traditionally when we're talking about moving district boundaries. And the reason that these other goals are listed as, a tertiary concern on this slide is because we can only talk about those other factors after we have already addressed federal and state law. So there are other things you might want to bring to the table, and that's absolutely permissible, just keeping in mind that federal and state law come first. So, despite the months and months delay in the receiving and processing of census data, I am happy today to say that we do have official numbers for Palmdale from the 2020 census. So you will see here that you have the population for each district as well as the total population for the city. Because the city has 4 council districts and federal law says each district should be equal in population size, we have to think about, well, what is that ideal population size for each council district? And luckily, this is the easy math, which is to take the total population of the city, divide it by 4, that's the number of council districts, and you are going to get 42,598-ish. And that is the target number that we're looking for. Once we approve a plan, we want each district in that plan to have about 42,598 people. It doesn't have to be exact, but we are going to be talking about deviation. And what deviation means is just how far off is each district's population from that ideal number. So the second column here is deviation from ideal. So what you can see is that the current District 1 is 2,332 people more or larger. I believe I hear some stuff from the audience. We say overpopulated relative to the ideal, and the other 3 districts that have negative numbers in the deviation rows are somewhat underpopulated relative to that ideal number. So when we're talking about population balance across these 4 districts, we're talking about trying to get each district closer to that ideal. Now, we are allowing for some deviation. However, there is federal guidance that says we should have a total deviation, meaning the difference between the largest district and the smallest district should be under 10%. So the math that anyone who was here at that first commission meeting got to see me calculate this deviation math live in front of the camera. But all we're doing to get that 8.09%, which is the current total deviation of population across the districts, is we're taking the population of District 1, we are subtracting the population of District 2, that's our smallest district. We get that 3,446 number. Anyone who doesn't like math, close your ears. We divide that by that ideal size of 42,598 people, and you end up with 8.09%. Okay, people who hate math can open their ears. What this means for Palmdale is that because the current districts have a total deviation under 10%, they are considered population balanced, meaning we do not have to shift population in order to comply with the federal population equality, okay? That being said, we do have to consider all of the other legal requirements that I just talked about. And many cities still want to bring that deviation down lower because, of course, the more equal the population is, the fairer the residents are represented. We have a wealth of demographic information from the census. I'm only showing you on this slide here the total population by race and ethnicity and the citizen voting age population by race and ethnicity for the entire city, as well as each of the 4 current districts. However, I'm about to show you an online map that will allow you to see many more data points. So going back to the requirements, the second requirement for California state law was that we have to consider drawing district boundaries in such a way that they're not dividing up our neighborhoods and communities. The reason for this is so that our neighborhoods and communities have a fair chance of being represented by a council member. And we're familiar with the term neighborhoods, but in redistricting, we talk also about communities of interest. And communities of interest is a much broader term than neighborhood, and it captures groups of people that may live in a geographic area, but may not identify as a neighborhood. So that definition under state law for community of interest is that it's a population sharing common social or economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of representation. So we're going to be talking through that during the discussion portion of today's meeting, and we'll hear some examples of what communities of interest might look like in Palmdale, in other cities, but ideally we want to be hearing from you what defines your community. And all you need to tell us are 2 things. What are your community's common interests? And where are you in the city of Palmdale? So this is the exciting part for me. I am going to really quickly show you a couple of the mapping tools that the city of Palmdale is making available to the public so that you can actually draw your district, all 4 districts for the city, or your neighborhood. And you can submit that to the commission and have that entered into the public record and have your map considered as part of this process and perhaps ultimately be selected to be the new map of districts for the city of Palmdale. So there will be an online mapping tool. Unfortunately, it has not been launched yet. I am expecting it to be launched on Wednesday, and we will be updating the website as soon as that's available. However, all the online tool is basically just an interactive computer-based version of the paper map. So these paper maps show you the total population of each population unit in the city. And working with that ideal district size, you can actually draw your own districts on this paper map and pull out your calculator or your phone and see if you're getting that district close to the ideal number. So those are available in the lobby if you're here in person. And then I'm going to show you where you can find this on the website as well. So hopefully if I click this, it will open. And on Zoom, can you see drawpalmdale.org? Wonderful. So this is the dedicated website that I mentioned earlier. It has a wealth of information on redistricting, the schedule that I mentioned, FAQs. I'm going to click Draw a Map. This is where mapping tools live. So we have the paper map available in English and Spanish as printable PDF files. So you can download these and print as many as you want, and you can draw beautiful maps. I like to draw mine using colored highlighters or maybe erasable colored pencils if you make mistakes. And then you can submit those either by taking a picture of the map and emailing it to redistrict2021@cityofpalmdale.org, or you can actually mail back that paper map. Once the online tool is launched, it will be here where it says District R. However, what I wanted to show you is two more things so that you can start diving into demographic data about from the 2020 census, okay? So there is that data table here as a PDF with many more data points than what I showed you on the slide. There is also an interactive map that shows the current districts. So this is what I was excited to show you today. This shows you the current districts for the city. You can look at this map in many different ways. You can put on satellite imagery, you can put on just the streets, however you want. That's by clicking Base Map Gallery. If you go back to layers, you have the option to see all of these data points here by checking or unchecking the boxes. And if we uncheck current districts, and I know those of you here in the room with me, you can't see this. However, you will be able to go onto the website, and if you want to see this tutorial, what I'm doing right now, you can watch the recording of this meeting. But don't worry, I'll make this quick. And you can check any of the other layers you want to see and zoom in and out for the city. CVAP stands for Citizen Voting Age Population. So if we want to see the percentage of eligible voters that are identifying as Hispanic in the census, we can click on that and it should populate on the map. There we go. It's just a little bit slow to load, but you can do this for any of these things. You can look at the percent of renters. You can look at the percent multifamily housing, income levels, families with children under 18. And of course, what you're looking at is a heat map that's loading really slowly. The red census blocks are the ones with higher percentages, and purple is the lowest. So here's the legend. When you click on legend, you can see that. So this is an incredible tool. You can actually also type in your address or any other address and have that be zoomed onto the map. So I'm going to go ahead and close out that website. I just want to make sure everyone was aware of these tools. And if you do have questions on how to use the tools, we will do our best to help you out with that. But now I am going to open it up for general Q&A from the public. Ryder and I will be here to answer any questions that you have about the redistricting process or the tools. Thank you so much for your patience.
Hang on. Oh, there. I've been empowered. I have a voice and agency. Thank you very much for your summary and comments. Chair, were you going to lead us in some of the Q&A that was going to go on right now?
I'm hoping to, yes. I know we have people here in the audience. At this point in time, we are opening this for public input regarding our future district boundaries in the city of Palmdale. So if you have questions, if you've entered them into the chat, that is perfectly fine, but we would like to unmute you if you'd like to ask those questions and be able to get your inputs and maybe hopefully some answers for you.
And I think to your point, Chair, we'll start with answering a bunch of questions and then we'll get into the communities of interest discussion to follow that. So I'm going to hang on to the mic. If you got a question, just go ahead and ask your question.
I appreciate it. Okay. Again, thank you for the city of Palmdale. And if I can just get some feedback from the actual committee, such as Ms. Reina and yourself, sir. And the question is, why did you choose to volunteer to be part of this big change? It's important to me so I know where you guys stand. I see that you're here, but I'm just curious, why are you guys volunteering to do this? What is your best interest when it comes to this community?
Can everybody hear me? Good. The reason that I did this is because this is where I live. This is important to our people. Everybody needs representation, and it's important that we come together and make sure that each community is represented with integrity. And to me, that's extremely important. That's why I do the things that I do. So that's why I did this commission. You're very welcome.
Other questions? Sorry.
Are there any other questions in the room?
We have a raised hand on the line.
Perfect. Can you please state your name?
Participant by the name Dave Bowman will be unmuting your microphone.
Hello, Dave.
Okay, I'm back. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This question has to go ahead and do with process. I actually have 3 of them, and I know that I have to take my turn. But I'm really interested in knowing whether or not anybody from the NDC firm or any associate of your firm has ever consulted with the Palmdale mayor or any of his staff in other than a public setting. That's the first question. The second one, has the mayor or any of his staff ever discussed the issue of a 5th district in Palmdale with your firm or any associate of your firm? And the last one is simply, does your firm have intention to develop a 5th district map? And if, in the light of the now 73% majority with our Black brothers and sisters, why? Thank you very much. I will now mute myself.
Thank you, Dave. So I tried to jot down your 3 questions, and I will do my best to answer them. First, to my knowledge, NDC has not consulted privately with the mayor or any other members of the council. Secondly, the issue of a 5th district is not something that is on the table as part of redistricting. Many of my clients do ask this question because, of course, when you're thinking about district boundaries, you may also think about the number of districts. However, oftentimes the number of districts has to be changed through a different process. So timing-wise, between now and April, we are not considering changing the number of council districts in the city of Palmdale. However, that is absolutely something that could be addressed in the future. And perhaps the city attorney can speak a little bit more to what changes would need to be made in order to change the number of districts in the city. And then your third question was about whether or not we intend to create, I believe, a majority-minority district per the Voting Rights Act. And this is where I would encourage members of the public to draw those maps and draw as many as you can and enter those into the public record. The role of NDC is not to draw the map and bias the city council and say, here's the map. The role of NDC is actually to take the maps drawn by the public and to process them professionally and present them to the commission and the council with a full demographic report for each of the districts in the map drawn by the public, as well as an election cycle for that map. So you draw a map, we're actually going to add to it by producing a demographic analysis and presenting that to the commission. We also try to draw additional maps, depending on how many we receive from the public, to fill in any gaps that we might see. And we don't necessarily sit down to try to draw what we think as consultants is the best map for Palmdale, because we don't know that. What we try to do is draw maps that haven't been submitted by the public. So they might be things that are completely crazy that will never be adopted, but we're trying to make sure that there's an array of options. Many of our clients ultimately, choose a map drawn by a resident of the public that's then been revised and modified. The good news is that there's time in this process for the commission and the council to see different versions of maps, right? So it's not just like, here are your options, choose one. It's like, here are your options, select a few you want to focus in on, hear from the public about how those preferred focus maps may need to be revised. Then we come back with revisions. Then we hear more input from the public. So I know I'm giving you a very long answer here, but I hope that this is all useful information.
If I could just follow up with some questions of my own to clarify a couple points. So it's my understanding, like when NDC processes maps that are submitted by the public, not every map submitted by the public meets the legal criteria that have been outlined, which you reviewed extensively in the rank priority that has kind of almost created a formula of sorts for maps to be created, right? So part of that processing effort is to look at those maps and say, well, thank you, member of the public, that this map actually doesn't quite comply. Maybe usually I think the biggest issue is voting as a population balance. It's just off, the deviation's out. So can you clarify that a little bit more?
Sure,
Like the
yeah,
process
so
of maps
that's
being
absolutely correct. So say we get 30 maps from the public prior to the first meeting where we are presenting maps. NDC will process all of those maps with the demographic analysis I mentioned, as well as an initial determination as to whether or not each map is legally compliant from our perspective as experts. If maps are not legally compliant, that doesn't mean that they're thrown out. They are still part of the public record, and we may take from them ideas. We may be able to see a map that doesn't have population equality, but we do see the intention, or that intention of the map maker may have been submitted along with the map, and we may see that a goal that they're trying to accomplish in that map. So that would probably be a perfect opportunity for NDC to draw an NDC map that tries to accomplish that same goal that a member of the public did, but we try to do it in a legally compliant way. So perhaps that is answering your question.
Yeah, that answers my question. I think the related point I would make too is when you submit maps, it's great to submit maps with comments as well to provide some clarity and understanding of your intent with the map you drew, so that when NDC, say the map you submit isn't legally compliant, but you have intent, if NDC is in a position to take your map and enhance it to achieve legal compliance, they at least have a sense of what the member of the public was attempting to achieve, right? So this is really that great investment where the city's invested in top shelf demographer resources to help the citizens be empowered to execute the mapping process.
And I do notice that on Zoom, there is a lot of questions being typed into the chat box. Unfortunately, that scrolls so quickly that those of us up here on the podium can't see that. So it is much better if you could raise your hand on Zoom so that we can all, and for the benefit of those here in the high school theater, so that they can also hear those questions. Because the people here in the room are not able to see what you're typing into the chat. So please do raise your hand if you are typing those questions into the chat.
We do have a couple participants with raised hands. Anna Scofield will be allowing you to talk. Please unmute your microphone.
Okay. First of all, my name is Elena. Not it's spelled Alenna. I don't know how you got ANNA out of that. I know they did Kamala Harris like that. That's how you reduce people strategically, in a way where it's almost like, oh, my name is not Anna, it's Elena. Thank you. My question is, I want to know how to utilize the tools, and I want to know the website for that. And I also want to know how these maps, once they're drawn up and submitted, who's going to critique them to ensure that these maps are actually being able to have equal representation for all of the people. Because I know rich people that have money and want control and power, they're strategic in what they do. And then it'll be like, oh, well, we gave everybody an opportunity to participate. But then, there's a lot of people who actually don't become a part of the decision-making process is because they either have been conditioned to not participate. My experience is it's too many people of color that have been conditioned not to vote in the Antelope Valley. And it's scary. It's scary to me. I come from an environment where we were taught to register to vote at 18, and I've been voting ever since because we were taught that. And our young people, our generations in this community, it's a disservice because there's no passing the baton back to actually get the young people rallied up to actually participate to vote. You have so many school to pipeline, school to prison pipeline. When I was out there passing out flyers to run for mayor, 10, 15 young men, Black men in a row in one environment. I have a felony. I have a felony. I have a felony. I have a felony. All these young Black people have felonies. That's taking away their right and power to vote. How do they get reinstated? And how do we get the people that are in prison? And I'm talking about voting now. That's a whole nother subject, but let me get back because I've digressed. How do we get people who don't understand this process engaged and have somebody to represent them to be able to map out districts that are going to be truly fair representation of the people, of the 157,000 residents of Palmdale? Thank you very much. I appreciate your time for allowing me and your consideration for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so very much for voicing what you did. And I would like to apologize. Our lighting in our room is not the best. So I know that he did not mean to misread your name. Thank you so much for your comments.
Is it Alana? Elena, okay. Elena, this is Kristen with NDC. So I heard a couple big questions here as well as a big concern. And first, I think to your concern, I want to just say, with redistricting, we're talking about representation. However, all we can do through this process is engage the public to draw district boundaries. And within those districts, it's up to you as people of Palmdale to register voters, register everyone who's eligible, get them to turn out at the polls. And beyond that, and I think what's often an even bigger challenge, especially when we see cities transitioning to district-based elections, is you need to find people in each district to run for city council, right? And so particularly women, people of color, Black and brown folks, they often don't run for office, and they need to be asked to run for office. However, that is not what the redistricting process is able to address. So that is a separate thing from what we can accomplish with district boundaries. So getting back to your questions then, how do these tools work? The tools work however you want them to work, right? If you want to pull out a piece of scrap paper that you have in your pocket and draw something on it and label streets or label landmarks, schools, parks, the airport, the water park, whatever, you can enter that, you can submit that little piece of scrap paper, and that will be entered into the public record. And when I say entered into the public record, what I actually mean is it will get uploaded onto the website so that everyone can see it, and it will be part of what is considered by the commission and ultimately the city council. So how will all of these submissions be critiqued? That is an excellent question because it again requires public engagement. Now, the city of Palmdale chose to form a commission of residents who volunteered to dedicate their time to focus solely on considering the public's submissions and redistricting. Whereas the city council has a number of other issues and business to deal with on a day-to-day basis, the commission is focused solely on redistricting. So right now we're in the period of time where the commission is conducting that work. Once the commission completes its work and makes a recommendation to the city council, then the city council will hold public hearings to critique these draft maps. And so there will be another round of public feedback on these maps. And it is our hope that we will get as much critique from the public on these maps as possible. That's so important. And of course, keeping in mind that, you know, there may not have been as much public engagement in how Palmdale arrived at the current district map. So what I encourage everyone listening to do is to go back to this website, which is drawpalmdale.org. Okay, and we can also drop that into the chat for the benefit of Zoom. And go through this website, clicking on draw a map. As soon as maps are submitted and processed, they will be posted on the draft map page. And I'm not sure if we actually have on this website a list of all of the commissioners, because I'm trying to sort of read the chat here. But yes? Yes, okay, so there is also a list of the commissioners on the website. Again, I feel like I'm talking way too much, so I want to give everyone a chance to ask their questions.
So if I could just also just note a couple points too, because there were questions raised about getting the community involved. So I'm the outreach person, so that's my opportunity to say a few things, hopefully. So a couple things I just want to say. Number one, there are certain criteria requirements that are expected by the state, like the bare minimum to get done. And the reality is, if you look at what City of Palmdale is doing, it goes far and above and beyond what's required by the state. Formation and Advisory Commission, not required by the state. Holding this many public hearings, not required by the state. Having a dedicated website, that the only thing you see on that website is focused just on the redistricting process, not required by the state. I could go down a long list of all these additional things that the city is invested in, getting a top shelf demographer. Demographer is probably required at some point, but the top shelf one goes above and beyond. So I say all that just to reflect the point that we're working very hard to make sure that people know about these opportunities to participate. Like so many things in the public space, when you try to get the public engaged, sometimes it brings out a lot of folks, and sometimes it's a little hit or miss. And sometimes we're competing with Dodger baseball games. So there's any number of factors that can go into the participation process. But we certainly are going above and beyond even the normal processes, I think, in the city of Palmdale to try to get public engagement in this process. And here's just one example of that. We actually have made proactive phone calls to nonprofit community-based organizations throughout the Palmdale area, particularly those that are represent various socioeconomic groups and ethnic groups, to encourage them to tell their membership and those folks that they connect with about this process, to be involved with it. And those are actual smile and dial phone calls that our staff has been making to try to reach out to those groups. So we are welcoming every voice at the table to make sure they're participating in this process. And then the last thing I'll just say is there's really two great areas to offer feedback at this point in time. And one of them is going to be the section we get to after this Q&A discussion. So the first one is feedback on the maps as they get formed and submitting maps. The other one is just identifying communities of interest and providing healthy and effective neighborhood and community of interest identification so that it respects those neighborhoods and those communities as we go about the map drawing process. Those are two very impactful ways where early on in this process, it can really make a difference. All right, do we have more questions? Oh, yes, Chair.
Do we have anybody online that would like to ask a question in Spanish or have it interpreted for them?
The only raised hand currently that we have is a Dave Bowman.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, we will unmute your microphone now.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, I'm back. I hope you guys can hear me.
We can.
Can you hear me? Okay. This question is for the city attorney, especially since the city has decided to go ahead and dispatch him here. I didn't go ahead and see him at the last meeting for this, but I would imagine the city wants to go ahead and protect its interests. Now, what I want to go ahead and ask the city attorney is two specific questions. Please explain to the people how we go about deciding to increase the number of districts and the process to get the issue in the public forum at city council meetings. If we want to go ahead and introduce a 5th district, we know we have to go ahead and go through our city council. Please tell us how to do that. Thank you.
Is this on? Hi. Sir, I'm here today in a capacity in regards to the Brown Act. That's a very good question, and it's a question I'll have to do some research into, so I don't have an immediate response. If the consultants have a response to that, more than welcome to share your thoughts on it. However, the scope of today's meeting would be in regards to future redistricting. So your question is related, and I'll be happy to try to get back to you in regards to that question. I know you're online. If you could leave your contact information, I could figure out a way to get a hold of you so we could have a further conversation in regards to that. In regards to your comment, I have been present in every hearing and workshop that we've had, and I continue planning on doing so. So today is not my first time here, and our office will be representing the city in regards to Brown Act issues for the future workshops as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add that for every city, it can be legally a little bit different depending on how the current number of districts were adopted, whether it was a vote of the people, a city ordinance. Palmdale is, of course, in a unique situation as the current district boundaries came out of a lawsuit. So I do look forward to hearing from the city attorney what that answer is for the city of Palmdale, just keeping in mind that in some cities, it does have to come through a ballot initiative and voters have to approve it. And so if that's the case, it's not something that can happen until an election. So that's part of why I say that's not part of the purview of the Redistricting Commission, is simply because timing-wise, it would take a significant amount of time to make those changes. And that we are working on it on an April deadline. But thank you for that question, and please know that that's a question that comes up in many other cities, and I do hear that from my clients in other cities as well. So it's definitely a normal thing to be on your mind.
I know that Commissioner Thedford had a question. Did you still like to ask that question? There you are. Hello.
Actually, more of a comment. The questions that I had have actually been answered, some satisfactorily, some not so much. But I really just wanted to comment to the gentleman who asked the question earlier regarding why I volunteered to be a part of this commission. Much like I'm sure everyone else is, I would like to be able to simply participate in the growth of this city and hopefully the evolution of this city. I'm relatively new to the city personally. So I think a lot of people in this room and on this Zoom have had a lot more experience with the Palmdale government than I have. And so this is exposure for me to kind of get an idea of what's happening, what's going on, what people's concerns are. And an additional comment that I would have is for everyone is, and I think I've stated this in pretty much every session we've had, is, to be engaged as much as possible. I'm excited the fact that we have individuals on here who are passionate and want to be engaged with the city. And I would encourage those individuals to try to encourage more individuals because there is power, in the hands of the people. And the way I view this process, which again, it's educational for me. I've never been through any type of process like this. It sounds like it's being presented as an opportunity for the people to be engaged. And so I would strongly encourage to take advantage of the opportunity as much as possible, and then see where we land in the future and see how we can make those types of changes that so many of us, I'm sure, want, the equality, the representation, and so on and so forth. I make no judgments on anyone about how they feel about their experiences in this city. But this is, again, it's educational for me. So that was my reasoning for joining the commission, is wanting to be more involved with the city, wanting to understand more about my fellow citizens and the city of Palmdale.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Thedford.
We do have another raised hand, participant by the name Elena Scofield. Please unmute your microphone.
Hello, Elena.
Hello, hi. Wow, I have to go back and see. Oh, Christian, I like you. Can I get your contact information? Thank you.
Yeah, I will check with the city clerk because that, again, for every client, whether or not I engage directly with members of the public or not is something I leave to the client. And so the project manager here is our city clerk. So pending that, yes, absolutely.
So, and I would just say there is a form on the website to submit contact information, if I recall correctly. Is that right, Kylie? We got a form on the website for people to submit questions. Yeah, so if you want to submit some questions, those will make their way to Kristen, and that can include your contact back information, so we can also follow up with you there as well.
Yeah, and I will say I have responded to one person who sent an email comment, not directly to me, but was forwarded to me by the city clerk. So when in doubt, email our city clerk or email the Redistrict 2021 at Palm. What's that email? There it is. Oh, wait, at city, okay. Redistrict 2021 at cityofpalmdale.org. It's the very last slide of this PowerPoint. I'm staring straight at it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. We have a question from our audience.
You guys are doing a great job, by the way, regardless of the light. So thank you again. You mentioned that it's up to the community, right, to civically remain engaged or become engaged. But we could use the help from this commission and the city council, right? What do I mean by that? Well, when someone runs for office or is trying to make change in the community, there's always broadcasting, there's always digital boards, there's always events. So if we can collaborate and use those avenues to help the community engage, that in itself, we're a step ahead. So I'm saying canvassing works, it always has, but if we can use the help of this council, of the city of Palmdale, to advertise on the freeways, on digital boards, to advertise on radio spots, on the local radio stations. Now you're saying and prioritizing, this is up to you, the community, because people listen to the radio, because people drive on the freeways, because people go to events. So something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that comment. Do we have any more comments here from the floor? Or should I say questions from the floor? Seeing none.
Not at this time. We don't have any on Zoom.
Okay, at this time, we are going to open this up for public comments. So all of you that are online that have been waiting patiently, we thank you. Please raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment.
So I think now we're commenting now on communities of interest, correct?
Exactly, 100%.
Thank you, Chair. So can I intervene before we start taking those questions? And thank you, Kristen. So we're sharing this hula dula slide right here. For those that are online, for those of you that are in the room, the title on the slide is Your Turn, Communities of Interest. And the idea here is, we've talked a lot about communities of interest today. You've heard about communities of interest. These questions are really designed to help you think about what a community of interest may be. Our demographer, Kristen here, she's made it clear she doesn't like to opine too much on what potential communities of interest are because she wants to maintain a third-party stance on some of this stuff. As the outreach guy, I like to provide a couple examples just to make it easier for the public to understand and share some anecdotes from other agencies. So I found myself up in the Central Valley discussing communities of interest, and we had some amazing comments. One of the communities of interest that somebody identified was communities of interest based on soil type. And their point was that certain soil types resulted in certain crops. Certain crops had certain interests that were around those crops, and therefore the soil types themselves could actually create communities of interest in this broad Central Valley area. Another example that had come up was a discussion about fire risk. And there was a particular area where there was a wildland-urban interface. A bunch of houses were sprinkled in that, and it was always subject to fire risk. So there was a big community of interest that had nothing to do with ethnicity or income. It had everything to do with what is the potential that fire could destroy our neighborhood. And so in the context of that, that was defined as a community of interest. So today I would ask, and this is really one of the most important things we can get done today from the public online and from those in the room commenting, is to help tell us what are the communities of interest or the neighborhoods we should be aware of, because the law is very clear that they would prefer you not divide those up, that they stay intact and stay whole. So we want to make sure that we're aware of these communities of interest. This is where you are the experts in your neighborhood, and you share those with us. And not only share the community of interest with us, but if you can give us a name of the neighborhood or the nickname that people recognize it by, and then streets in particular as identifying markers, that would be most helpful. I think what we're going to do as well, for those of you that are, the way this is going to work is Kylie here is from Team Trip Epi Smith with me. Side note, Kylie has actually lived until recently in Palmdale, so she's has local knowledge, which is very helpful in these processes. But Kylie's going to be taking notes in a document, and she's going to be sharing her screen, so you can actually see, if you're online, you can see the notes she's taking. For those of you in the room, you won't have the pleasure of being able to see her screen very easily unless you have excellent eyesight. But what you will have the benefit of is we will, at the end of the day, post her direct verbatim notes on the website as part of the process. And just to be clear, everything we're doing today is being recorded. So what you say today will also be, we'll have a pure audio record of exactly what you say. So that's a long-winded way of now getting to the point of, please tell me about your communities of interest.
We have one raised hand on the line.
Excellent.
Participant by the name of Dave Bowman. Please unmute your microphone.
Hello, Dave.
Hello. Buenos días, señora.
Buenos días, ¿cómo estás?
Yo me está hispano también. Okay.
Gracias, está bien.
Mi puro interés es el interés de la comunidad de Palmdale, la comunidad latino y de nosotros hermanos y hermanas, las personas negros en la valle. So it is extremely important that what we all go ahead and understand is what we all have had expressed to us, that there is a criteria for redistricting or districting. There are also, I believe 5 elements. Would NDC mind going ahead and explaining to us what those 5 elements are and what the priority is? Because I believe the community of interest is probably down at the bottom. But up at the top, there are things like, racial makeup of the districts. There are also a few other criteria that's involved with that. But I think it's important because in the last 2 meetings like this, open to the public, there has gone ahead and been pushed at us, communities of interest. communities of interest, but not what really this is all about. And this is about equal representation for all people across the valley, especially the 73% majority of Blacks and Latinos here in the Antelope Valley. So I would like a response to that question. Gracias.
Thank you, David.
Hey, this is Kristen again. So you're absolutely correct that the Federal Voting Rights Act is a higher priority consideration than communities of interest. Under California law, right, communities of interest are actually number 2 on the list, right? Number 1 on the list is make sure that each district is a district. Like, that's pretty easy. Most people comply with that easily, that it's like doesn't have any islands, right? But number 2 is communities of interest. That's why we're focusing on that. And I will say that you can define your community of interest as low-income Latinos that live around a particular elementary school, right? In another city that I'm working with, they have a community of interest that's very important to them that is defined by some historically African-American retirement communities, okay? And there's special care taken not to divide those retirement communities into different council districts, okay? Because that would dilute their power, not just to elect a representative, but to interact and influence that council member, right? So while communities of interest are not as high priority as the Voting Rights Act, they are something that we feel is under California state law very high up, and particularly the only thing higher up for California state law is contiguity.
Do we have any more further questions from the audience or from Zoom?
We have one raised hand on Zoom.
We'll take the gentleman in the back and then we'll take the one from Zoom.
Thank you.
So with respect to community of interest, what's your name, gentlemen?
My name is Ryder.
Ryder, you mentioned that community of interest is, and she mentioned community interest too. So as I sit here today, and I was reading the data and the stats on your paper, one thing that stood out for me was, as a community of interest, is the current median income on a male household in the east side of Palmdale. So creating jobs that at least doubles that median household of $35,000 per year on a male household when the primary wage earner is the male. So creating jobs that go over and beyond that average of $35,000 per year for this district is my main interest for this community.
So what you're identifying there is a community of interest and around household income level, which at 35,000 would be lower income. And they're kind of unified by those issues and challenges. You're being very specific in the head of household being male. Is there a comment on that? Sorry, hang on one second. I want to make sure we get this.
According to your data on the paperwork that you presented to us, it defines as the male.
Hey now.
Happy Halloween.
Is that us? Okay, we're good. Sorry.
So, and it identifies, let me see if I can pull it real quick, if I may.
Just let me specify that if you're...
Solamente déjame decirles que...
Hang on one second. All right, let's keep this mic off. Why don't you?
All right, so
On the east side, it just basically said that the average male on the east side of Palmdale, District 3 or 4, one or the other, that main income coming in, household income, is $35,000 that's made by the male at that home. So
I think when they say household income, it's the total household income.
well,
Yes.
it broke it down to even further as the male working in the home.
The census can do that as well, but
Yeah.
just for the clarity for everyone who may be looking at the website, the table that I mentioned that's on the website, that's total household income. And then Yeah, so if you're looking at other census data, that's.
Equally as
yeah.
important,
Absolutely.
creating jobs in that community that allows them to live above the poverty wage level is my community interest for the east side.
Okay, and so let me just ask a follow-up question, because you in prior comments referenced east side as well, and now you just again cited it. So this is where it gets into
Vamos a ver
where
lo
are
que
we
está pasando.
so let's get clear about one particular thing, which is what constitutes the east side? What is the street that you would say everything east of this is east side, just for my own knowledge? Hang on one second. Hang on. Sorry, we gotta keep the microphone on you.
I'm looking at the map now that you presented to us. So I would say anything east of Sierra Highway, right?
Okay.
Which is District 2 and east side, right?
Okay.
And the economics change, the restaurants, the job opportunities, the resources, all that is minuscule the further east we go. So creating that community of interest that creates more job opportunities equal to and better than actually District 1. Because when you look at District 1, it's just amazing to me that it took a map like this from the census that tells me and yells at me that District 1 dominates all factors. So I'm just trying to create a map to create that interest and equality in all facets of living here in Palmdale. Jobs, entertainment, schooling, resources. So that's what I'm looking at.
Yep, okay, that's very fair. I think that's part of the point of having good representation, is to make sure that you get a holistic approach to community services, right? I mean, I think that would be, everybody's a Palmdalean, right? Everybody's a Palmdale resident. All right, excellent. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Other communities of interest that folks in the public here would like to share?
I do believe that there is a question on Zoom
Hopefully a comment.
or comment.
Participant by the name of Elena Scofield will be unmuting your microphone.
Thank
Hello.
you very much. It is a comment. So I would like to include with the Latina community and actually the populations of trying to create mortgage paying jobs. I would like the African American community to be included, the Asian community, the Native American community, the seniors, homeless, high school seniors, and disabled. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question before we mute you, or you unmute or you mute yourself?
Sure.
So I'm just curious, are there any concentrations or neighborhoods in particular, historically African-American neighborhoods or Latino neighborhoods or Asian American neighborhoods that you'd like to bring to our attention or call out for our benefit today?
Well, specifically, I think the gentleman was talking about District 2. There's a population that surrounds the city hall right there. And that population is mainly Black and Latino. Yes.
Okay.
And
so
I
you're-
don't know the particular name of that community, even though I don't live too far from that.
Okay,
So, yeah.
What I'm hearing you identify is that from your perspective, there's a community of interest centered around the city hall area of the city of Palmdale.
Yes, that's only one.
Of course.
It could be many more. Yes, sir.
Yeah, understood. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right. Other folks out there in Zoom land have a comment on communities of interest?
There are no raised hands.
No raised hands. All right. That was kind of my siren call to them. In this room, do we have additional communities of interest that anybody would like to identify? Members of the public? So let me just pursue one other area on this real quick, if I may, Chair, before we head towards the conclusion of the meeting today. The other area I'd like to ask about is any other key identifying landmarks in town that you think make for obvious points of that people recognize and would therefore be obvious points that could perhaps suggest demarcs for boundary lines. So we talked about a highway earlier, and everything east of this highway. That highway is probably understood by the community, right? People know if they're on the east or the west side of that highway, and so they can easily identify that as as a boundary area for a district line. Are there other major streets that people recognize that you think might be obvious demarcations for where districts should start and stop? Chairwoman.
Highway 138.
Okay, Highway 138, obvious demarc for district boundaries. Excellent. Thank you for getting the ball rolling on that. Any other suggestions for any east-west lines you want to note so we get some north-south segregation or separation, I should say?
14 freeway.
Okay, it's a good one too. I would say. Hang on 1 second, we got to put a microphone on you. Hang on, I'll come to you. Oh, we're getting our steps in today. I appreciate it.
Yes. 50th Street East or 50th Street East going west,
Okay.
maybe a redistricting area.
Okay, 50th Street East.
And the perpendicular area would be Avenue S.
Okay,
50th Street East and S.
okay.
I would say 10th Street West, because whenever I give somebody directions, I always say 10th Street West, then you go east if you're going east, and you go west if you're going west to the opposite side. So I don't know.
So 10th Street's a big street.
I have a few more. We've got Rancho Vista Boulevard. We've got Elizabeth Lake Road.
Slow down. We got to type. We got to keep up with you.
That's okay, I'll make sure she does. So we have Rancho Vista Boulevard and Elizabeth Lake Road.
I'd add a couple. 30th Street West. Then going north-south, you have Avenue R, Avenue S, and Palmdale Boulevard, which is also Highway 138. And Avenue M, which is right where the border of Palmdale and Lancaster meet.
Sorry, was that M or N?
M as in Mary.
M as in Mary, thank you.
Also,
Excellent.
I don't think a lot of people realize that 138 belongs to the state.
It's a fair point. These, at the risk of riffing into a territory beyond redistricting, states control highways in most respects, and your ability to do work or have issues you fix on that highway, you end up having to go to Caltrans, and
That's why we can't have parades on Palmdale Boulevard.
that's why you can't have nice things. Thank you. All right. Any other boundaries, landmarks, points of demarcation we should just know about? I see one more. I see another hand up here.
The transportation center.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent point.
That's where our Metrolink is at.
Yeah. Metrolink Transportation Center. Very good.
There is one more that most people are, if they're looking at the map, I really truly think they're going to see it and go, why is this like this? Because it's white. That's Plant 42. And we bounder around Plant 42. But we have an air park there. An air park that a lot of people know about and go to see a lot of our planes from the past. And it's definitely something we need to think about as well.
Yeah, excellent point. Okay. All right, very good. Well, we'll bring a conclusion to our communities of interest discussion, and also we want to generally stay on time. Since we started about late, we're going to finish up a little bit late as expected, which is fine and dandy. I want to thank you all for that. Just remember, just because you didn't speak up today about communities of interest, that isn't the end of the road. There are ample opportunities. If you're not a Dodgers fan, you should join us at 5 o'clock tonight, and we'll have a whole conversation about communities of interest again. Oh, I'm sorry, is there a?
We have a hand that just raised.
Okay, very good.
Go ahead, please.
Give me 1 second. Participant by the name of Dave Bowman, we will be unmuting your microphone.
Thank you.
Hello.
This was a comment I was trying. Hi, buenos dias, señora. This was a comment I was trying to go ahead and make before the city attorney cut me off. Now, I don't have any need to explain democratic principles to anybody that is in this room or listening online. But primary among those ideals is that the rule of we the people who are in the majority determine how government is run. And part of that is the understanding that everyone has an equal say. The AB has a long and tragic history of racism and voter suppression at the hands of law enforcement as well as local government. The California Voters' Rights Act addressed the issue of equal representation in city matters. That was a decision by the courts as legislated in our state assembly. Okay, now the number of Blacks and Latinos has grown even larger. We're almost at 73% of the population. And when the court decision was made and concentrated in both of those predominantly Black and Latinos 3 and 4, and the opinion of many, many voters requires that the additional district should include a mixture of Black and Latino, our Black sisters and brothers. We need to go ahead and ensure that this important community, the Blacks and Latinos, is also included in local government decisions by allowing a Black representative to be elected to city council, where they have gone ahead and been neglected for decades, over half a century, and at one point even forced to go ahead and move outside of Lancaster and Palmdale because they were refused to buy homes there. So this is a big thing for everybody in this audience that's going ahead and listening to you. And I strongly encourage to get in touch with your local community activists, and let's start seeing about addressing these issues at city council, because if we don't do it now, we're going to be stuck with their decision for 10 years. And we know where that has gone ahead and led in the past, and we can't go ahead and let it be part of the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Do we have any other?
Not at this time.
Okay, let's bring it to a close because we want to make sure we stick to our schedule for the remainder of the day. And frankly, we got to pack up here and go unpack at our next facility, right? So in all haste. So we have a shared PowerPoint deck going on here. Very good. So just a friendly reminder, we got upcoming workshops today at 5 o'clock. If you love the siren sound of my voice, and more likely you like Kristen's voice because she's far nicer and more intelligent than me, you want to check her out. She's both debuting again tonight at 5 o'clock. Great show. Everybody's going to love it. More entertaining than a Dodger baseball game. And then we have an October 25th, 6 p.m. meeting as well, which we would love to see you come out to as well and participate in the community. Second thing, and this is, hang on a second here, let's see if we get that. There we go. And then just remember, like, we are still in the relatively early phases of this process. So there's ample opportunity for public participation through October. November, we're going to have some public hearings as well through the Advisory Commission, and then ultimately in front of the City Council. And then we are targeting that April 17th date. Just to be clear, that's not a legal date that the city imposed upon itself. That's actually imposed upon the city because we need to finish up by April so that we can get all the systems in place. So by the time the November election happens, they've got all the new district lines figured out. And that takes work. And if you want democracy to work, you got to make sure the maps are proper with the registrar of voters. So that's the timeline we're on right now. Please visit the website, and that really takes me to this, which is last and final comments I'll make before I'll hand it over to our chair. Please continue to share your thoughts and engage, right? This is a digital process as well. Yes, there are paper map options. There's lots of ways to participate in person, certainly. But when we're not here seeing the Kristen show, we have an opportunity to enjoy each other's company online. Please email redistrict2021@cityofpalmdale.org. Visit the drawpalmdale.org website. There's a ton of information on there, including the video recordings from these sessions. And we hope that you are there. We hope you just find ample questions and ask questions through that platform as we talked about often today. With that, Chair, I'll hand it back over to you, and thank you for the time to be in Palmdale today.
Well, I like the Kristen and Ryder show. Don't let them fool you, okay? Are there any questions online?
There is one.
There is one.
Participant by the name of Elena Scofield, please unmute your microphone.
Hey guys, thank you for the Ryder and Christian or Christian Ryder show. I actually am hosting a first annual Palmdale Prayer March next Sunday, October 24th at 11 to 3 at the Ponsalon Square. And I'm inviting people out to come. I'm praying. We are praying for the whole city of Palmdale. All right.
Thank you for your.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there anything else that we have online? No? Are we good? No more questions here?
No.
I need a motion, please. I need a second. Motion in the meeting has been admitted and seconded. Do I hear any opposition anywhere? No? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Let it be noted. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out today and being a part of this. Remember, this is our community and you are the people. I'll see you at 5 o'clock.